Welcome to Let's Talk Sport, and in this video we are going to talk about Jurgen Klopp after that Brighton draw on Saturday. He had a heated interview with Des Kelly of BT Sport and was arguing about the TV schedule. Of course, they had a Champions League game on the Wednesday night and they would be playing first thing on Saturday, 12:30 kickoff. So, of course, not much time for Liverpool to rest up ahead of their Premier League game after their Champions League game. Joe Stanley, of course, is our Liverpool fan. Joe, it was I'm not exactly a big fan of post-match interviews. I find them very boring, simple questions that don't really need an answer. I think we all know what they're going to say, but this one was great. Real character, Klopp pretty much saying it as it was. And what did you think about what he said? Because a few weeks back, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer said the same thing, and this was after they beat Everton. And he told BT Sport, I don't agree with the schedule. Why is it we were in Turkey on the Wednesday night and we have to play first thing on the Saturday? What do you think about all this?
I think both managers got a very good point. I think the Premier League, BT Sport, Sky, and all the other broadcasters involved need to wise up. I think because if they're not careful, they're not going to have a product to air. And it's all right, Des Kelly kicking off, because he did at the start of the interview, he was poking at, with the questions, he was poking the bear, really, let's just put it that way. Because Jurgen Klopp said the same thing to Sky the previous week. Sky didn't kick off about it, they just, took it and moved on, and BT seems to have taken uppance to it for some reason. And I know that the broadcasting companies pay millions, if not billions of pounds for the broadcasting slot, but we're in a situation at the moment which is unprecedented with COVID, and the football schedule is very cramped together. Surely they could just say one-off, okay, well, maybe they could still have the Brighton Liverpool game to broadcast, but maybe just have it at a different kickoff time. It's like you're looking at Sheffield United played in a late kickoff. I think it was 5:30. I think they played. No, Everton played 5:30, and then Sheffield United played at the 8:00. Those teams weren't in Europe. The Everton Leeds weren't in Europe. Sheffield United and I can't remember who they were playing. They weren't in Europe. West Brom wasn't. I think they were playing. They weren't in Europe. So one of those clubs could quite easily have the dinner time slot. So I think, as Klopp said to Sky the previous week, they need to communicate with one another. The Premier League, Sky, and BT about who's having what game and when. And the football clubs, obviously, they signed a contract months ago, but this is before the whole COVID situation to do with the broadcasting. We'll do so many games for this channel, so many games for that channel, and I know it all comes down to money at the end of the day. Really, it's player welfare as well. And why aren't the PFA getting involved and saying, look, these players are playing hectic schedules? And I know people are pointing out the Football League have a similar sort of schedule and stuff, but it's less, with no due respect, with all due respect, to the Football League, no offence intended, but it's a higher quality of football in the Premier League and Champions League to what it is in the Football League. And I think with the amount, and it's like with the certain football clubs like Chris Wilder at Sheffield United being against the 5 substitutions as well. All this is piling up, and it's just going to result in more injuries. And I know injuries are part of football, and Liverpool aren't different to any other club. Every club has injuries, but the point is that eventually it's going to get to the point where teams aren't going to be able to field their best 11. So what's the point?
It's a tricky one because Seb, I don't know how you manage it. I know Klopp has a go at the broadcasters, but at the same time, Des Kelly threw it back at him and said, well, it's actually your club has to agree on the schedule. So in a way, I might be wrong. I don't know how it works, but I'm sure the clubs have to agree on the slots still with the broadcasters, despite how much money they put into the games, and have that control, you could say, on the schedule. But if that is the case where the clubs have to agree on it as well, then should this not be a thing where Klopp talks to his club and go, why did we play at 12:30 on Saturday when we could have played in the evening or on a Sunday?
Yes, that's one point to make. But then there's also, I think there's no room. I'm not sure how it works exactly, but I think there's a lot of room for negotiation when I heard today that, for instance, BT have the half lunchtime slot and Sky have the early evening slot, which makes it for they pay top dollar for their early evening slot or their lunchtime slot. Liverpool are the top club in England at the moment. Let's be honest, they're the top club that everyone wants to watch. Personally, if I was to switch over and there were multiple matches on at the same time, I'd choose Liverpool. it's kind of what happens when you become that top team. You get more money from the league, from prize funds and things like that, television rights, and therefore that is supposed to be able to give you that margin of error for a much more compact squad. Now, yes, I can sympathise with Liverpool a lot for their current injuries, but they're a team that has made the least amount of substitutes in the whole Premier League season so far, and so it's hard to sympathise with Klopp sometimes when he keeps finding one scapegoat, and then at the same time during that match he hasn't used all his substitutes. The extra money is supposed to be within that. It's supposed to invest within that squad depth, and Klopp also has some blame to take because, for instance, Robertson hasn't rested. He's rested in English, in the EPFL Cup. That's not what it's called. EFL Cup, yeah, and that's it. He's played 90 minutes except for a couple of times against Atalanta. So muscle injuries are going to come about. It's not about playing 3 hours earlier on a Saturday than he would have liked to play. It's because he is overusing some players in his squad. But yeah, I can sympathise with Klopp and the fact that his club agree with the schedule, but it seems to be a small detail compared to the bigger picture, which is that he's probably overworking his players.
I think as well. I mean, we'll hear what you think, Joe, from what Seb has just said. But the way I see it as well is it's like spinning plates. You got to keep them all balanced, and that means trying to keep all the teams happy with the schedule, which is never going to work out in my eyes because you've got Man City, Spurs, Arsenal, Man United, Chelsea all playing in Europe. So it's hard to get 6 teams to have a game that they're happy with sometimes, I think, each weekend, even especially when they're not playing each other. So it is tricky. Joe, what are your thoughts on what Seb just said?
Yeah, he's got a point, and I know he does overuse certain players, and I remember reading the other day, Danny Murphy said that, I never complained when I was a player, playing, I always wanted to play. But somebody pointed out that Andy Robertson's played something like 20 games in the space of 3 months, either club and country.
Yeah.
Whereas Danny Murphy only played 100 and something for Liverpool. I think it was like 157 for Liverpool, 15 on loan at Crewe between 97 and 2004. So you can't really talk if you're looking at the amount of games played. But yeah, okay, you said got a very good point there with the overuse of certain players, and Andy Robertson did pick up an injury on international duty to Scotland, but then was able to overcome it quite quickly. So it must have just been like a minor tweak to his hamstring. But at the same time, you've got to use your best players. We've got Kostas Tsimikas, who's coming as a deputy this season, but he wasn't fit until recently, until about a week or 2 ago, and he played against Atalanta. I thought he played actually quite well, Tsimikas, but the press seemed to bombard him and slate him for some reason. I don't know why. I thought he did okay, actually, to be honest. He wasn't one of the players that performed poorly. It's always going to be a balancing act, and I think you'll see a lot of rotate. Well, we would have seen a lot more rotation if it wasn't for injuries with the Liverpool squad. I just don't know how Jurgen Klopp's obviously going to manage it. He's a top manager, but it's just going to be difficult, and especially with certain players, we're just going to have to rely on youth. Let's be honest, at the back a little bit. And I think Phillips has been fine since he's come in. He's been good. Nico Williams has been shaky, but I suppose that will go with more experience.
We have seen this before, though, haven't we, with Klopp? Where, I mean, I kind of got what he meant last year, just before Christmas. They had a League Cup game that they had to play, but at the same time, they had a Club World Cup to go to in Qatar. So he then decided to obviously not be at the League Cup match at Anfield. Instead, of course, travel to Qatar and make sure the team would win the Club World Cup. Of course, it worked out. They got the Club World Cup. They won that League Cup match, I think. I can't remember. Joe will probably remember. But, it's not the first time. Sorry. Did you lose that one?
Yeah, against the Aston Villa, they lost 5-0.
Lost 5-0 to Villa.
Oh, sorry, I forgot. But I mean, it's not the first time, is it, Seb, that Klopp has had a problem with the schedule?
Well, I can understand for the one where you're supposed to be halfway across the world on the day after. That's completely understandable. This Premier League one where you have to play at lunchtime rather than 3:00. Would that be
a difference?
Is that a compromise Klopp is willing to take? I don't think not. But this is not the first time this season that Klopp is going to cause a fuss. But I mean, firstly, it was about the TV schedule. Secondly, it was about the Premier League with the substitutes. I know it's a valid point that he's making every time, but then he signed up to this. The Premier League is congested. We don't have this German winter break. We don't have every single team playing at 3:30 on a Saturday afternoon. It's spread out for the viewers, and that's why the Premier League is one of the biggest money makers football-wise. That's what you bought into, and that's also what you signed up to when you decided to become Liverpool boss, who would give you more resources to be able to improve that squad. And he's got young players as well that he can use. I sympathise with Klopp, of course. It's starting to look unlucky after a while, but I mean, he's making it sound a lot worse than it is, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's a tricky situation, but I guess really, Joe, that the only way it would probably change is if all the managers got together and went against the schedule, which we haven't really heard much from. Maybe, of course, Solskjaer said it, and so has Klopp. But I guess, I think the other thing that annoyed me was what Chris Wilder said the other day. You know, Chris Wilder is struggling with his team at the moment. And I understand why he's against the 5 substitutions, but I think 5 substitutions is actually realistic at the moment because, as we all know, they've not had any rest, any of these players from either team. The only problem is with teams like Sheffield United, if they haven't got the depth like Liverpool or Manchester City. So there's certainly arguments here and there everywhere. But I guess at the same time, Joe, we live and learn when it comes to something like this. We weren't expecting a pandemic at the beginning of the year.
I think Chris Wilder is just cutting his nose off to spite his face, to be honest. He seems to have a bit of a problem with certain clubs and certain managers, and I think his idiocy concerning the 5 substitutions, because let's be honest, and be brutally honest here and blunt, that's what it is. It's just ridiculousness. It's going to, like I think Seb said last week, it's going to cost Sheffield United, because didn't you say last week, Seb, at the moment they're on course for 5 points if you're looking at.
Yeah, if you're taking it as a linear trajectory to how many points they'll get at the end of the season, which is never the case because it never works like that, but it could, they'd get 4.26 points or something like that.
Which is crazy. And I think his opinions on the substitutions is just really silly. I think he's an old school manager. That's what he is at the end of the day. But I think the decision making there is silly. I think regarding the TV thing, I think if things continue like this, you'll get to the stage where football clubs either just broadcast their own games. I don't know how that would work money wise, or why can't we have, like in the UK, like they do, because they've got La Liga TV come on to Sky not that long ago. I'm sure it was like a 5 or 10 a month. Yeah. Why don't the Premier League come up with their own channel, Premier League TV, and then it'd be less of a problem? I know Sky and BT would probably kick off about that and they'd lose money off it, but at the end of the day, the football clubs and the league's got to look after its own product, and I'm sure there'd be a heck of a lot more money made for the clubs and the league if they had their own channel or app.
Especially if it was affordable. I mean, you've got it in America, haven't you? You've got NFL Network, which is an app where you can watch any match at any time by the click of a button. And a lot of NFL matches are on at the same time, kind of like in England when you have 3 o'clock kickoffs on a Sunday in the NFL. And then you've got, I think, WWE Network does it where it's not all congested because it's all just at one event, but you've got it all in one app. Which, who knows, Joe? You know, La Liga TV may have just started something special there. Who knows in the next few years? But of course, Sky Sports and BT, you know, they pay over 7 point whatever billion pounds it is for these TV rights, which just shows that I think the Premier League may stick with that for a good while. But I think are we going to end this debate, or have you got any more to add, Seb or Joe?
I mean. There's a fair point about the La Liga one, but La Liga, let's not forget that there's a lot of contempt from every single club in the Liga towards the actual league association. So I don't see that thing lasting. They're very strongly disliked amongst Spanish clubs. So it might work. I personally don't see it, and if it doesn't, then that'll just entice the Premier League to stay and stick with Sky Sports and BT Sports. So I don't actually see that happening anytime soon. I think there's too much money in it. And if they were willing to pull out, then the TV broadcasters will just put down more money. That's just going to happen, and they have all the leverage, and that makes sense as well in this capitalist society. They just have everything possible to make it their own and to keep it.
If Luke was here, he would certainly say, money, 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 give it to me. We miss you, Luke. But anyway, that's our thoughts here on Let's Talk Sport. Is Klopp right to go against the TV schedule? Let us know in the comments below and subscribe to Let's Talk Sport.